Welcome to Fundamentals of People Management, Module 12. I'm Dr. Lon Schiffbauer, and today we're talking about terminating employees. If you're going to be a people manager, then it's just a matter of time before you are faced with the responsibility of terminating an employee. It's not something you look forward to. It's certainly not something you want to do, but it is a reality of the position. Furthermore, it is not going to be easy. No matter what you do, it is going to hurt. It is going to cause pain both with you, the employee, and potentially the organization. So with this in mind, let's talk about how to mitigate this pain. Let's talk about how to perform an employee termination while still respecting the dignity and worth of the individual and reducing the risk of harm to you, the individual, and your team as a whole. This is something that can be done. However, as we've discussed in some past modules, this is one of those situations in which you want to engage with human resources. Do not take any steps before you meet with HR and figure out how to approach this situation. There are any number of laws, rules, regulations, and company policies that must be followed when terminating an employee. If we disregard these or pay minimum attention to them, then this incurs serious risk for the organization. So throughout the entire process that we are about to discuss, you want to have HR at your side, giving you guidance, giving you suggestions, and helping you work through this process. So once you've engaged with HR and you two have sat down and figured out the best way to approach this, you can then go about the termination process. As I mentioned, HR will give you a great deal of guidance in this area. However, generally speaking, these are the steps that you will follow. First, we need to plan the meeting in which we will deliver the news to the employee. Now, this planning involves several steps in and of itself. The first one is we need to get a bunch of paperwork and information together, have it ready to deliver in this meeting. This includes things like the termination letter, severance details, if applicable, and additional resources that may be available to the employee as they exit the company. You also want to plan out when you are going to hold the meeting. Now, you want to select a time that has the least amount of impact on the employee and on the organization, on the team. So you'll want to think out how you're going to schedule this in relation to other activities going on throughout the organization. Then, of course, you'll want to figure out where you are going to hold the meeting, the actual meeting location. You want a place that's relatively quiet and secluded, a place where interruptions are not too terribly likely. You will also want to plan out who needs to be in attendance in the meeting. Of course, you and the employee will be there, but more than likely you will want to have somebody from HR accompany you in delivering this news. Now, in some cases, legal counsel may be required. Once again, this is something you will discuss with HR. However, make sure that you're not bringing a whole cadre of individuals, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 people. You want to avoid the impression that you are ganging up on the employee. Finally, in this preparation stage, you'll want to outline the conversation. What is the news you will deliver? How will you deliver it? What sequence? Things like that. The important thing is to be clear, concise, and factual. To the extent possible, you will want to anticipate employee questions and reactions and have information available when these questions come up. If need be, if you're particularly nervous about this particular meeting, you may want to practice with a colleague or with an HR representative. Okay, so we've planned everything out. Now it's time to hold the actual meeting. Let's talk about how you will want to execute this. First, in the meeting, when delivering the news, you want to be direct and honest and avoid euphemisms. By euphemisms, I mean beating around the bush and kind of using metaphors and similes and so forth. No, we want to be direct. You're delivering the news. tell them the news. Furthermore, you will want to focus on the decision. You're just delivering the facts. This is not a referendum on the employee or their personality, their traits, or anything like that. You're just here to deliver the news. In so doing, you will want to explain the reasoning behind the termination. Now, once again, stick to the facts. We don't want to get into opinions and personalities and things of this nature. We are just talking about the performance related to the expectations, any steps that may have been taken to mitigate for any performance gaps, things like this. Furthermore, you will want to be relying on documented evidence. As I said in a previous module, the 3 rules of HR are document, document, document. If you bring up any evidence that is not documented, this really puts you and the organization at risk for wrongful termination. So make sure everything is documented. Now, along the lines of being direct and factual, relying on documented evidence, you'll want to make sure that you stay focused, that you don't meander into ancillary topics. You are just here to deliver the news. Remember, this is a termination, not a negotiation. You are just informing the employee of the decision. Now, this won't be easy, not by any stretch of the imagination. After all, there's a strong likelihood that the employee is going to respond emotionally, maybe even get bitter and angry and hurl personal attacks and insults and the like. After all, think about it. You've had plenty of time to think through this, to plan it, to practice with HR. You've received counsel and guidance on how to approach this situation. Whereas the employee, they haven't had any of this benefit. In many ways, they'll probably feel ambushed. It is completely understandable that they should respond emotionally. It's incumbent upon you to maintain your poise and composure throughout this situation. Now, none of this is to say that you need to be a soulless robot. Not at all. You want to offer empathy. You've been here, you've done this, you get it. However, you want to make sure that you stay on track, stay focused on the facts, stay focused on the decision. Once again, this is a termination, not a negotiation. You are simply delivering the decision. Now, when I say offer empathy, you of course want to allow the employee a time to speak, a time to express and vent their frustrations, their feelings, their perceptions, things like this. Absolutely. However, don't allow this to derail the meeting. You want to make sure that you stay focused on the news and next steps, things of this nature. If they start to go off script, and they most certainly will, you will want to carefully and with care guide them back to the topic of the discussion, which is termination. Now, of course, as they express their frustration or their concern or their confusion, they're going to ask questions. This is normal. This is the way we work. Remember, this is kind of coming out of left field. They have many questions. And during the planning phase, you anticipated many of these questions to the extent possible. However, when answering the questions, make sure you are direct, honest, and concise. You also want to bear in mind the legal ramifications of anything you say. So in some cases, you may need to defer a question to HR or to legal, but in all cases, you should be clear, direct, and honest. As they express their concerns and frustrations, don't ignore them. Don't just toss them aside, and don't try to counter everything. Remember, this is not a negotiation. It's not a debate. However, you want to make sure that you don't promise anything that you cannot deliver. You don't want to raise false hopes. It's at this stage during a termination that the employee often kind of tries to turn it into a negotiation or open future opportunities or things of this nature. You want to make sure that you stick clearly to your message. Now, once you're ready in the meeting and the news has been delivered, you then want to go into detail on what the next steps are. This means briefly explaining the termination process, including effective date, final pay, severance benefits, if these are applicable, providing resources, and other things that the company is providing to the employee upon termination. Once you've done this, you then want to end the meeting clearly and unequivocally. Thank the employee for their time today, the work they've done for the company, and wish them the very best as they go on to their next opportunity. The meeting is over. Now, I say the meeting is over, but your work is not over. Once the employee has left, there are things you need to follow up on. First, you need to inform the rest of the team of the employee's termination. You want to do this in a way that is respectful and empathetic. Furthermore, you want to make sure that you do not share any information that could be private regarding the termination of the employee, things like this. Next, you will want to address any gossip or rumors that might be banging around the hallways. Now, this is not to say that you need to squash the rumors or anything like this. It means that you need to deliver the information that the rest of the team needs to understand what happened and move on with this. Now, related to all this, you also want to provide support to the remaining team members. After all, many of these folks consider the terminated employee a friend. They've worked together for a long time, and so they will justifiably, understandably, be concerned and have questions about the termination. They're also worried about their own positions. They may not come out and say so directly, but trust me, that's banging around in the back of their heads. Next, once all the news has been delivered, you need to then reallocate the former employee's responsibilities to the remaining team members. After all, there was work this person was doing. This work still needs to be done. Who's going to do it? You want to map that out. Now, once all of this is settled, you'll want to pause and take some time for yourself. Now, yes, you're not the one who was terminated. You were the terminator. Okay, I get the joke. But the point is, this wasn't easy on you either. I'm not trying to make a comparison between you and the employee that you terminated. We all get that it's better to not be terminated. Nevertheless, you have gone through some level of, trauma, at the risk of overusing that word, in terminating the employee. It has had an effect on you. It has taken a toll on you emotionally. You want to take the time to process that and to come to terms with it and yourself move on in the organization. So there you go. That is the basic outline of an employee termination. Now, like I said, be sure to engage with HR. Every single step here is fraught with risk. HR will be your guide and your comfort. Now, all of this will bring about change in the organization, change in personnel, change in roles and responsibilities, change in how we get the work done. And that's what we're going to talk about in our next module, change management. So stick around. We're going to leave this difficult topic behind and get back into the fun stuff. All right? Hey, thanks a lot for joining. And until we talk again, have a fantastic day.